Hello dear chess friends, welcome to the first video of the video course dedicated to Catalan Opening. And as promised, we will be starting with the very basic tactical ideas that could arise in positions from Catalan Opening. So don't be afraid, I'm sure that you will be able to find the answers for all of the puzzles that I'm going to show you in this first video. And in fact, the first chapter is going to be involving practically exclusively forks. And as you will see in a moment, there will be a couple of recurring themes here, so I'm sure that after first or third or fourth example, you will just subconsciously think about what the answer to the positions I'm going to show you should be. And we're going to start with a game played between a grandmaster and a much weaker player, because well, usually the bigger mistakes are made by weaker players. So here we are going to see Grandmaster Miroslav Grabarczyk with white and lesser known player rated approximately 1800, 1900. So huge rating difference between two players. So there was d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, g3. And here perhaps a little bit of a disclaimer should be made, because this is where the theory begins. We're not going to discuss the theory of this opening in detail right now. I will try to show you and discuss some of the theory in the final chapters, where we are going to be dealing with most notable games played in Catalan. But let me just mention that well, this is a starting point of the theory in Catalan, but the move order may vary in lots of situations. So Catalan involves white developing the bishop to g2, and that's what you need to understand. But very often white develops the knight to f3 first, although he can try playing bishop g2 without playing knight f3. There are some differences. This may affect black's plans, and black should be aware of the differences between knight f3 and the bishop on g2. But for the purposes of this introductory chapter, so to speak, I'm not really going to discuss that in detail, because this is not really the point here. What you need to understand for the time being is that it's all about the setup. So white wants to develop the bishop to g2 prior to developing the knight or after that. But the move order may differ. So white may play knight f3 first or the bishop to g2 first. And at the same time, black may start by playing d5 on move 1, then e6 on move 2, and knight f6 on move 3. But he might as well just start with knight f6, followed by e6 and d5. In fact, in Catalan you get great many transpositions. So you will see in the PGN, which is going to be included in this video chapter, games starting with knight f3, games starting with c4. But all in all, this position is the most popular one, and this is where things get exciting. So in the game there was b6, bishop g2, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, queen e7, protecting the bishop on b4. And here I would advise you to take a look at this position as if it occurred in one of your games, so that you try to think from white's perspective and find the best possible move. So please take some time, think about this position, and feel free to pause the video. I'm going to give you the answer in a moment, but make sure you have your own opinion on the position before hearing the answer. Okay, so queen e7 is a mistake because of queen a4 check. And apparently black did not realize that with the pawn on b6, queen e7 is not really helping black to protect the bishop on b4. Here, of course, black would love to have a move like knight c6 available, but Here, if he plays that, the damage is even bigger, because white just takes on c6, later on wins the rook as well, and most likely the game. With the pawn being still on b7, this knight c6 move would definitely be available. Also, if black had the pawn on a5, the bishop on b4 would also be safe. But as you see here, there's not a single move that saves the bishop, so well, black just lost this game. In the game he played bishop d7, but after queen takes b4, he just resigned. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. So this is Counter versus Sahil, and white is approximately 2480, black just above 2200. So we already see that the level is quite reasonable, we could say, but still, in a moment you are about to see that it is really easy to go wrong in Catalan, especially with black, if you're not aware of the most typical tactical ideas that could happen in this opening. So you really should pay attention to the most basic tactical ideas here, so that you don't blunder and don't lose in such a horrible way as black did. So let's see what happened. So there was d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, g3. We have our main position. Bishop b4 check, which is a move that happens very frequently in great many move orders. It's just one of the moves that black happens to play on a regular basis. Knight bd2, bishop d2 is a possibility. Knight c3 is also a move. And here black played b6. And from the previous example, you already might sense that the bishop is a little bit loose on b4 once the pawn is moved to b6. And this is very true. Although black did have a sort of a tactical justification to his move, because on queen a4 check, he did play knight c6, and in this particular case, black's strategy involved the fact that after queen takes c6, bishop d7 forces the queen to go back to b7, and the queen is very quickly running out of squares, and in fact that continuation would be quite risky for white. So white had to be very precise here, and he did manage to punish black for his reckless setup. And this is, again, a task for you. Feel free to pause the video, try to find the best possible continuation for white. Okay, if you need more time, again, feel free to keep calculating. The right continuation here is knight e5. So instead of capturing on c6 right away, we take advantage of the pin. Black still needs to do something, and he doesn't have that many options. So on knight e5 there was bishop d7, knight takes c6. Of course, bishop takes c6, queen c6 is just completely winning for white. So black played an in-between move, bishop takes d2 check, bishop takes d2, and queen c8, cd5 just wins the game on spot, because in the very next move white is just going to overprotect the knight with rook c1. He's going to escape from the pin with a move like queen c2, and he's going to end up with a piece advantage, which is definitely enough at this level. And of course, black just resigned. And let's move on. The next example is going to be relatively similar to the ones we've been going through so far. So this one is was played between Sergei Khamitsky and Igor Rosichin. White is an international master from Belarus. I'm not really, I don't know anything about the black player, but clearly the white player was much stronger because he won in 10 moves. So let's see what happened. There was d4, knight f6, so this time we see a different move order. c4, e6, g3, d5, bishop g2, bishop b4 check, knight bd2, and black played d takes c4. So this time we don't see black playing b6, which was the fundamental move for the tactical ideas in the first games. This time we see a bit of a different setup, but please pay attention to the difference in white's position as well. In the previous examples, white already had the knight on f3. This time the bishop is not blocked by anything. In fact, the bishop is just developed, because in the previous examples white chose the move order involving knight f3 played before developing the bishop. Here, since the bishop is not blocked, black does not have knight c6, or in other words, he does have knight c6 after queen a4 check, but this will not be such a strong move, because on queen a4, which obviously was played in the game, knight c6 can just be met with bishop takes c6, removing the only defender of the bishop on b4, and later the bishop on b4 just falls. Black did play knight c6, there was bishop takes c6, and even though he's already down a piece, he played a few moves more, and after bishop d7, simple bishop takes d7, queen d7, queen b4, queen takes d4, knight g to f3, and only here black just felt that playing this position further is just pointless, because white collects the pawn on c4, and even though it's not a full piece, I'm pretty sure with such a material advantage the white player would easily win the game. Let's move on. This time I wanted to show you that it's also important for white to pay attention to the moves that are played on the board. And we're going to see a really similar example to the ones that we mentioned before, but this time it's going to be white who played a bit recklessly in the opening. So there was d4, e6. Again, as mentioned before, lots of transposition can happen in Catalan, and we are going to reach pretty much same position. So there is c4, knight f6, g3 this time, d5, bishop g2, c6. Very solid setup for black. Just making sure that the d5 pawn, so a strategically important object, is overprotected, and also that prepares taking on c4 and supporting the pawn on c4 with b5. White played knight f3, there was knight bd7, b3, bishop d6. So from black's perspective it sort of looks like a semi-Slav setup, because then in semi-Slav this is precisely what black intends to do. Just have a very solid center, castle king side, sometimes play b6, bishop b7, and only then play a bit more aggressively in the middle game. And here I'm pretty sure that white recalled that from strategic point of view it is important to exchange dark squared bishops. And this game was played between, I think, lower rated opponents. I have to admit I don't really know the exact ratings of these two players, but considering the type of a mistake, I'm pretty sure that white was not really a high level player at the moment when the game was played. So here white just played the bishop a3, and bishop a3 as such exists, and this might be an important strategic idea. The problem is that it was not well timed here, and actually try to find what the drawback of this move is, and I'm pretty sure it will take you a couple of seconds, but it's really important for you to warm up before the upcoming more difficult examples. Okay, so obviously prior to castling, white cannot play bishop a3 because here black just takes on a3 and after knight takes a3 plays queen a5. Of course, here the fork on the knight and the king just wins the game because it's not possible to protect the knight, and it's pretty much pointless to play this move this game further. Let me just mention that playing queen a5 straight away is probably not the most precise move order. Well, definitely not the most precise move order, because here white just defends with a move like queen d2. Taking on a3 is not advisable because you just lose the queen on a5, and instead if you take with the queen on d2, white just recaptures the queen with the knight, and the bishop on a3, which was a problem a moment ago, is nicely protected by the knight on b1. So everything just works well enough for white, and he's not dropping a piece here. But instead, as it was pointed out, bishop takes a3 first, and only then queen a5 check just wins the game. Okay, so this was a proof that black also has some resources, and let's move on to another one. And this game was played between Mengi and Fernandez in World Championship Under 20. I'm not really sure what white's rating was. The black player was above 2300, so you could say FIDE master level of black player. I'm not sure how strong white was, but definitely weaker player, and you're about to see why in a moment. So there was d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, c5. It's not Catalan, and if you've spotted this, then it's a really good observation. But again, as I mentioned, in Catalan you can get great many transpositions, and it's important for you to recall a position that we're about to see in a moment. So there was g3, cd4, knight takes d4, only now d5, and in fact this position could be reached in great many move orders, even starting from the English Opening. And here the thematic idea for black is to go e5, knight f3, and d4. This is theory. This is a position that was played in great many games. In fact, for those of you who play Greenfeld defense, you could say that this is reverse Greenfeld opening, reverse Greenfeld defense, with this time white trying to just to attack black's center by means of playing c4, and black just pushes the pawn to d4. And at first glance it looks like this is a blunder of a pawn, because after all, why can't white just take on e5? And this is perhaps the very question that the white player asked himself, and he decided to give it a go and take his chances. Unfortunately, it transpires that the geometry of the board that you're already aware of, I'm sure, proves this move unplayable, and after queen a5, black just won the game. And let's move on to the last example for this video. This was Schultz against Base. Again, I'm not really sure how strong the players were, but considering the number of moves that were played, at least one of the players here, the black player, was not so strong, or at least not aware of what could happen in Catalan if you don't play precisely at the very beginning. So there was d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, c4, e6, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, b6, castles, bishop b7, bishop g5, bishop e7. So we see a bit of a different way of playing for both players. Knight c3, d takes c4. And here you should already start paying attention, because the bishop on g2 for white is the key piece, and there's great many tactical motives simply based on the fact that the bishop controls the longest diagonal. And here there's actually a black bishop on b7 as well, so this makes it possible to start thinking about possible tactical solutions. For those of you who feel tactically sharp, this is probably the right moment to start considering white's possibilities already, and try to figure this out, try to find the upcoming few moves for white. Let me just mention that this is not yet a winning position for white, but white generally starts growing a very nice initiative, and if black does not play very precisely, then he might end up losing some material, which is exactly what happened in the game. So feel free to pause the video, take as much time as you need, and try to think and analyze this position carefully. So what was played here was knight e5, and this is a great move, using the fact that the bishop on g2 is dominating along the longest diagonal, hitting the knight on c6, and also just taking advantage of the fact that there is a bishop on b7 which is pinned to the knight on c6. Of course, the very basic tactical concept here can be shown after knight takes e5, because here white just captures the bishop on b7, attacking on e5 and on a8 at the same time. If something like rook b8 is played, then the simplest would be just to take on e5, and in the following move, white just takes on f6, winning the material and most likely the game. Instead of playing knight takes e5, black chose knight a5, and everything would be okay, because at first glance it seems that the knight on a5 is protecting the bishop on b7, and everything would be okay if it wasn't for white's, well, very nice sequence of moves. So white started by playing queen a4 check, which maintains the initiative and also makes black's defensive choices very difficult, because here, as you see, there is a couple of moves interesting. Black could play knight d7, he could try c6, but it's already quite visible that whatever he does, he will still be under great pressure. Unfortunately for him, he chose probably the worst move, and I'm sure it was much better to start with king f8 or even playing c6, but instead he just chose playing knight d7, and this was met with bishop takes b7, knight takes b7, and the final move is knight c6 here, just hitting the queen and the bishop. The queen needs to move, but then white just wins the minor piece and most probably the game. And I feel this is the right moment to stop, and as you see, these forks taking advantage of the king that hasn't castled yet happen actually quite frequently, and you need to keep in mind that this is a possibility in many positions, so that of course you can take advantage of this if your opponent makes a mistake, but maybe even more importantly, just make sure you don't blunder like this on your own, because it's going to be a very unpleasant situation, and something that you definitely want to avoid. So in the upcoming video, we're going to take a look at some other cases of a fork. as you see in this video, we only dedicated our time to situations where white can win a piece by playing queen a4 at some point, or black just by playing queen a5 check. I hope you enjoyed these examples, and thanks for watching.